Welcome to Dads Meet World, a podcast where two dads sit down and figure out what is this world and what are we learning in it. This is a deep dive podcast of Boy Meets World. I am one of your hosts, Tyler.
And I am your other host, Brett, and we welcome you back into the living room this week, where we're going to sit down and spin the old VHS tape to take a look at one of these early first season episodes. So, Tyler, how's your week been?
Well, hasn't been too bad. Went for a walk today, took the family out, and we just kind of were in nature for a little bit and got bit up a little bit, but, walked my sister's dog, and we just had a good old time. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Keep busy. I got to finally get out this weekend. My wife got me a drone for Christmas.
Ooh.
And we are recording 2 weeks into July, and I have finally had a weekend where the weather was good, and we did not have a scheduled event or a vacation or COVID or some other illness that prevented me from actually getting out and using it. So Saturday, I got to go out in between rain showers and use my drone for the very first time. So that was a lot of fun.
Very nice. Very nice.
Some technology that did not ever grace Boy Meets World, unfortunately.
Yeah. You got to wonder what they would do if they were to find a drone. How would they handle that? Would they be okay?
I really want to see Eric with a drone. I envision him using a drone in, season 6, when he's got his own mini TV show starring Rachel. Mm-hmm. That would have to be one of his camera setups.
Well, probably would be. Or he would just use it to bring stuff to him so he wouldn't have to get off the couch.
Probably.
Because there are streaks where Eric is just straight up lazy and just doesn't want to get off the couch. So that could be one of those things that he would use it for.
That's because he's a townie.
That's true. You do have to wonder, at what point can you just fly your own drone to a place, grab the thing you need, and then walk out?
Well, Amazon has been experimenting with using drones for deliveries, so, we can't be that far.
Yeah. Walmart's not too far from my house. If I flew a drone over there and just go right through, grab the item off the shelf, I don't see why we couldn't make it happen.
I don't know. I kind of half expect someone to shoot my drone.
There is a shooting range near my house, so someone might shoot it down.
Yeah, and Ohio's kind of an open carry state, so granted, I'm not. I went out to a baseball field where I knew no one would be just kind of flying it in the open there. I wasn't like flying over anyone's backyard or anything, but if I was going to try to fly it into Walmart, someone was definitely going to be taking that thing down.
Yeah. Well, do you think we should tell them what episode we're talking about today, Brett? Give them a little synopsis?
I think we should, yes. This week, we are looking at the 5th episode of the first season, Killer Bees. And in this episode, Cory enters a geography bee for a chance to be a bat boy at the World Series. Eric is going to an Aerosmith concert with a date and is embarrassed his mom is going to the same concert. That should actually be his mom and dad. Now, this was written by Susan Estelle Jansen, directed by David Trainer, and it aired originally on October 22nd, 1993, and currently holds an IMDb rating of 7.4.
Very nice. Thank you for that. So we begin the episode, Killer Bees, in the classroom, because we either start the story in the classroom or at the house, and we're starting in the classroom.
Of course.
Mr. Feeny's passing back some test scores from their last geography test, and amazing bit right off the bat is, they're like, hey, our highest score goes to
Minkus.
I didn't know if you had a clip or not, but
I didn't have a clip for that one.
I just love that back and forth of Minkus. It's Minkus, right? Minkus? It's like, yes, Minkus.
Oh, yeah. I did notice there's no Topanga in this class, so either she doesn't share geography with Minkus and Sean and Cory, or she's on that other half of the room the camera never sees. That's just diabolical.
That very well could be. Well, and she could be on a family meditation retreat. We know that, family thinks education is good, but, what is going on with the soul? What about your feelings? And so maybe they're just, on a little getaway right now. Who knows? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's only late September, early October, so.
That's right.
Yep. So Mr. Feeney's passing back the test, and he's doing something that I personally never had a teacher do this before, and that's where he's like kind of giving comments, about based on just how well he thought they like tried, and maybe this is just a '90s thing. Who knows? One kid he's saying, "Hey, good job, good try," and to Cory just said, "Hey, this is what it is."
Yeah, I do have a little bit of that.
Miss Owens, excellent. Mr. Baker, very nice. Mr. Matthews, well, there it is.
It's so interesting because Cory's always like, a C? Like, he's always like wanting to protest his grades.
I actually studied for this test. Yeah, this is not something you would see today. And honestly, it's not something that I saw in public school back even when the show was running. Because, as we've mentioned probably a dozen times at this point, I'm pretty much right along with Cory grade-wise at this point, maybe a year behind. And, we never had assignments handed back that were vocally given to this. So this is definitely most likely a Hollywood thing. But it really would not fly today, I'm sure, with the prevalence of wanting to make sure that everyone is encouraged. Mm-hmm. I don't want to. I don't want to sound like I'm mocking or putting down the efforts of teachers today. So please, listeners, don't take it that way. I'm just trying to find a civil way of putting it out there.
Right. Well, even like when I was in high school, and some teachers would put grades up based on like your ID code, and so most people didn't know each other's ID codes, except if you're inquisitive like me. Eventually I figured out who is all the people. Mm-hmm. So there is that, but like I think it is just one of those Hollywood-ish things that he just needs to throw a joke in here and there and remember that we're having fun.
Yes. And Mr. Feeney's classroom, he definitely has that sass relationship with Cory. I'm sure he's built up that type of a relationship with more than just Cory.
Mm-hmm. And then we get into basically learning that the textbooks that Cory has is not actually up to date, because apparently in his textbooks, East Germany and West Germany are still a thing, as well as Alaska and Hawaii still being considered territories.
They'll make great states someday.
Yes. And I did look into this a little bit. I was trying to find, is there a specific textbook that, we could find this example out of? And either people just don't do well at putting those things out, or this is just not my field of research. What I did find is that essentially it takes roughly 5 to 7 years for new curriculum to get to a school. Mm-hmm. That's them going through writing it. That is, the states approving those textbooks, and then them actually getting to the schools. And of course, the well-off schools will get the textbooks first, and then the not-so-well-off schools will eventually get them. And so, roughly, with the Berlin Wall coming down in 89, it makes sense that in 93, they don't have up-to-date textbooks.
Mm-hmm. And so... Oh no, keep going.
Go
Keep
ahead.
going with your thought. I'll hop on
I
at
was
the
going to
end.
say, like, when I did geography in 5th or 6th grade, I can't remember exactly when, but I do remember they would give us maps and say, this is the map that is the correct map. This is the one we're using. Don't look in the textbooks. You know, not because they were way off at that point, but just to be on the safe side, they were like, this is what we're grading off of. Pay attention to this. So I'm sure Cory got that instruction, but just wasn't paying attention. So,
Right, and I have memories of some of those same things where there were certain subjects where we had handouts. There's Mr. Feeny had his mimeographs, and and we can extrapolate from this that Cory's school is, we already know it's a public school, so it's not, probably not near the top in the Philly area, and since their textbooks are at least this far out of date, we can assume that it's probably not one of the richer, more well-funded public schools in the area. So,
yep.
Middle of the road at best for the Philly education. So, yeah, makes you wonder just how well educated Minkus and Topanga are, and just how challenged they will be throughout their high school career.
Yep. We get a couple of jokes. We get into the theme song once again, and then we cut back into the classroom.
History, Lincoln always gets shot in the head.
Lincoln got off easy.
I love that one.
That's not surprising. Anywho, so we discover that Mr. Feeny is preparing his students for the geography tournament that'll be taking place, and he has elected Minkus as his champion of choice and going for his 6th in a row championship.
Minkus. Can I take a guess? Minkus.
And for whatever reason, Mr. Feeny decides to say, oh, yes, and the winner will be Bat Boy at the first game of the World Series.
Yeah. Now, I want to take a step back. Now, granted, yes, real world, this is 1993 TV land. Where did all those plaques come from in Mr. Feeny's classroom? I've never seen them in the first 4 episodes.
Yes.
And we'll never see them again.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just around the time of the tournament he pulls it out where he really focuses on geography.
Very well could be. I can buy that explanation better than anything else I could come up with off the top of my head. But did you notice also that when Mr. Feeny is talking about all of this, that Cory and Sean are playing rock, paper, scissors for something in the background?
No.
I couldn't quite make out what it was for, but it looked like it was just like a candy bar or like some peanut butter crackers or something. But you can see in the background, and if you're watching along, go ahead and go back to this scene. It's about where he's talking with Minkus about the prize not being a wall map any longer. It's Bat Boy now. It's just before Cory realizes what the prize is. But he and Sean are in the back, and it's a very aggressive game of rock, paper, scissors.
Interesting. I almost wonder if, like, the actors themselves were just told, like, act like you're not paying attention, so they just had a game that they were playing and just kind of got caught. I mean, I will say that these are all young actors that are trying to be told, act this way, and they're having a hard time every now and then.
Mm-hmm. And I do have to say, the Bat Boy in the World Series seems a very odd prize for a Geography B winner.
Yes. Do you want to get me to talk a little bit about the World Series and geography tournaments?
Well, I would love to hear a little bit about Geography B's tournaments in the World Series. What have you got for us?
Well, in 1993, which is the time period in which this show is taking place, the World Series actually had the Phillies and the Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, the Blue Jays won in the end. But it's just so interesting to me that this show is all about, Phillies in the first couple episodes, and the Phillies go to the World Series and nothing.
Yes.
Now, clearly they filmed this ahead of time, but the Phillies really do have a really good season in '93, and the show almost kind of craps on them just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're lovable losers.
Yeah, they really missed out on this opening season.
I will tell you that because they mentioned Barry Bonds, again, another famous baseball player. In 1992, he was playing for Pittsburgh Pirates, and then that next year, '93, he is officially playing for San Francisco.
And that's when his head allegedly started growing from the magic juice.
So, no, San Francisco was not in the World Series at the time. But I do believe that when Barry Bonds went from the Pirates to San Francisco, it was a huge deal. So probably, again, why they were mentioned. And they really do like naming off, famous baseball players at this time.
And I'm sure that won't possibly become an important plot point of another episode later this season. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right. So, geography tournaments. So what I had learned is essentially there's this thing called the National Geography or GeoB tournament. It took place between 1989 to 2000, and then in 2001 it was rebranded to the National Geographic B. That ran from 2001 to 2018, and in 2019 it got postponed, and then 2020 it was I was wrong. Yeah, basically it was delayed in 2019, 2020 due to COVID. It was delayed again, and then officially in 2021, it was no more. 2019, I believe they had trouble getting a host, and I'll tell you why. In 1989 to 2013, the host was Alex Trebek.
Yes, it was. I remember reading about the bee in some of the magazines I used to be subscribed to. They were an annual Christmas present for my grandparents.
Very nice. Yeah, so Alex Trebek was hosting it, and then after he stepped away, they basically had a myriad of hosts, and they really couldn't find a consistent voice, and unfortunately, that's all she wrote for the National Geography Bee.
Nice. So this episode truly is a monument to the past in many, many ways.
Yes. Yes. No, I don't think Alex Trebek was hosting this one, but it's not that far out there to say this was a preamble to get to the national.
Exactly. Yeah, so
it's just amazing that the Philadelphia area had the first prize as a being World Series bad boy.
I can buy it since the World Series Real World was in Philly.
Right.
So I can buy a regional B having that as a prize. So I can I can buy that. I can reconcile all that, but I still think that the pull down wall map projector would have been a far better prize.
Okay. I will tell you that kids that competed in this was between 4th grade and 8th graders. So to meet in the middle of 6th grade is actually not that bad.
Yep.
Yes. So that's all I have for that. And thus,
we return to Cory trying to schmooze Mr. Feeny.
Yes, exactly. Because Feeny realizes that his interest is not pure.
And upon what do you base that bizarre theory?
Yes. And so Cory's like, hey, have me do it. And he's like, no, I want Minkus. Minkus is my champion.
Oh, yes. And we get that very, very popular Cory shaking his head and Mr. Feeny telling me to stop shaking it. And I love that Cory is not hiding at all that he's trying to suck up.
You're sucking up to me.
As hard as I can.
He doesn't even try to hide it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so we go back home to Eric and Amy, right?
Yep. We are back in the couch. Eric is telling his mom that he has exciting news. He's taken Heather to the Aerosmith concert.
Now, this is the Heather that we heard about in the very pilot episode, wasn't it?
This is.
Yeah, the Heather that went to the Phillies game. So clearly Cory's date advice worked, and she took at least a second date. This will be a third date.
Mm-hmm. If not more.
Exactly.
Remember, he did suck a neck.
That's right.
Yes. So, and also I will say we're in the kitchen, all this is going on, and it appears as though Amy's trying to bring the groceries in, and Morgan is trying to help her by throwing away the broccoli and anything else she doesn't want.
That's just par for the course for Morgan and any other child that age who could sneak that in the trash.
Yes, just cute antics all around by her. Yes, and we do discover that Amy and Alan are also going to set Aerosmith concert.
We do, and I got a little clip about that.
Mother, and when I call you that, I'm referring to the generational chasm between us, which means you couldn't possibly be going to the same concert as me.
Why not?
Well, you know, Aerosmith's kind of loud for someone your age, Ma. I mean, you should really be listening to...
Careful.
Are Peter, Paul, and Mary blowing wind somewhere?
Aerosmith was still pretty big in the 90s. Now, granted, now they've fallen off quite hard, but Aerosmith was still pretty big in the 90s, and they would have been in Alan and Amy's day.
Yep. Yep, it appears as though Eric doesn't realize that bands are popular for quite some time, and if he likes it, it's probably because they liked it first.
I wonder what Eric's favorite Aerosmith song is.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. So anywho, I do love this next bit is Cory, Sean, I believe it's Elliot is the boy returning.
Ellis. This is Jawan Guy's last appearance as Ellis.
Yes, them and Minkus all walk into the house, and Cory's introducing Mom to Minkus. Minkus has been to the house multiple times. You're telling me Minkus hasn't met Mom yet?
He was there before the water war.
Yeah. Or is it one of those deals where Mom just being nice and saying hello, as moms do?
Oh, yes. I'm sure she was just being polite.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the only Minkus in the book.
I'm sure there aren't any other Minkuses in Philly.
No, I wouldn't imagine so.
And wait a minute. What book are they talking about?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do any deep dives on phone books?
Oh, no. Because I grew up with a phone book, and up until the point in middle school that we just stopped having them, I didn't even think about the fact that, we could have some listeners that weren't alive when there were phone books.
Yes, listeners, if you did not grow up during the 90s and early aughts, before we had access to the internet and phones with access to the internet, you had to look up phone numbers in a book.
Beavis and Butthead, it'll come back.
I'm sure it will. So anyway, before we go upstairs, there's a little button with that Morgan side story. We discover that we do find the broccoli, and it's hiding the liver.
Yes.
I've eaten liver.
Have you?
I have. My mother-in-law used to enjoy liver and onions. I never ate it with her. I ate it when I was a kid. It was not bad, but it's not the best meal. I don't blame Morgan for wanting to hide it.
Yeah, the 90s was huge on dissing liver, and I know I don't remember ever having it.
Well, I mean, it's the body's
I could have without my
filter.
knowledge. Right. But, like on Hey Doug, there was a whole big song about liver and onions and the kid trying to eat it and not being able to and finding it gross.
You ever want to not get made out with? You have some liver and onions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it is the body's filtration unit. So, I mean, come on. So anyway, they all go upstairs, and I do have a little clip for us when they get upstairs.
I'm glad you could come over, Minkus.
Real nice to be here. Can I go now?
Chill.
I don't understand what that means.
It means that 1 out of every 4 people is a nerd. So when you look around this room and you don't see one, you're it.
But we can help you change.
Maybe I like how I am.
You like everyone always making fun of you?
No.
You like always being the last one picked for teams?
No.
You like everyone pulling your underwear up your butt all the time?
It's not so bad.
Minkus, let us help you.
We're here for you, man.
It's early in the year. You can still change your image.
What do I do?
The geography tournament. You don't want to do it.
It'll brand you for life.
But I love geography. I'm drawn by the adventure and exoticism of it. Hey, perhaps you fellas would like to join the Future Cartographers of America Club with me.
Let it go, man.
If I don't do the tournament, will you guys like me?
No.
Then I don't see what's in it for me.
All right, name your price, you little creep.
When you guys play bombardment, could you not aim the ball at my head anymore?
Deal.
Ah, yes.
1 out of every 4 people is a nerd.
Which means when you look around this room and you don't see one, that means you're it.
All right. Well, I'll say, I think if they're talking about, the classic nerd of the Urkel, the Minkus, I think that could be what they're referring to.
Oh,
but in
of
my
course.
opinion, I think just about everybody in some way, shape, or form is a nerd. There's something that we obsess about. There's something we're a fan of. And whether it's a sport that you're a nerd in, or comic books, or anime, or fantasy stuff, we all nerd out about something.
Oh, of course we do.
So I think if they're saying that it's 1 in every 4 people is super socially awkward and don't know how to interact with people, you're probably spot on.
And these days it might be more 1 out of every 3.
Yeah, it's very true. But yeah, I think being a nerd is no longer a badge of disgrace, and it's truly a badge of honor. And
Oh yeah, it's definitely
I would
not
consider
as bad
myself
as it
a
was.
nerd.
Although I really have to wonder why Minkus doesn't think it's so bad to have a wedgie.
I don't know. I think it's going to lead Minkus down a weird path in his future, and I'm uncomfortable to talk about it.
Yeah, let's not do too much thinking deeply about that.
Yes. But I do like that Minkus' condition is, hey, stop hitting me in the head while playing this one game. And Ellis is like, well, what's the point of playing if we can't hit him in the head?
Yeah.
That is a 90s thing. Very much a 90s thing.
Yeah, bombardment would not be played today.
No.
No.
All right. So then we go back downstairs into the kitchen where Alan finally gets his turn to discuss his age with his son and going to the Aerosmith concert.
Yep, I do have this conversation as well.
Hi, who's first? Dad, you can't go to the Aerosmith concert.
He's afraid it'll blow out our hearing aids.
I'm just saying it's unnatural. I mean, can't you guys find your own concert to go to?
I'm sorry I couldn't get tickets for the Neil Sedakathon. Get a clue. We've been listening to Aerosmith since before you were born.
Oh, come on, get out of here. Don't kill my first concert, okay?
This isn't your first Aerosmith concert.
Madison Square Garden, 1978.
We were there. You were here.
You ate him?
How old are these Aerosmith guys anyway? Like 1 million?
Yeah, our age. Row, C, read 'em and weep.
That's a 3rd row. These are amazing.
Yeah, old guys get good seats.
Maybe we can buy him some decent seats near us so he can at least see the stage.
I don't want to sit near you guys, okay? I don't want to be in the same amphitheater as you. I don't even want to hear the same group as you. Go see if there are any seats left for Eric Clapton.
You want to tell him?
Oh,
wonderful.
Wow. Third row seats. I mean, granted, 1993, they weren't anywhere near as expensive as they would be now, but third row seats are still pretty decent.
Yeah, pretty decent. I will tell you, as I was looking into Aerosmith and where they were touring in 93, they had 2 dates in Philadelphia in September.
Whoa.
So they either could have been to the September 17th or the 22nd.
Wow. And this did air on the 22nd.
Yeah. So it's not that out there that they could have actually gone to that.
Hey.
I did not get the chance to look up if they were touring in 1976, but would it surprise me if they actually picked, a date and went with it and it was at Madison Square Garden? No. I mean, the way that most of these writers do stuff anyway, I'm sure it was a important date for one of them or the first time they saw it. So,
I'm sure.
I will say, though, I did look into a little bit of Eric Clapton because, I'm a 90s kid, but I got no idea who Eric Clapton is.
Oh, you Philistine.
I know. I do know that he's a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer from 1992. And he kind of had this tradition of he would tour a little bit and then he'd take time off and he would be recording and then he'd go on another tour and then be recording. But in 1993, he was doing some touring overseas, Japan, if you will.
Yeah, Eric's not getting a ticket to that show.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that when they say, should we tell him? I think they know he's not in America right now.
I think that's a double. I think that's double though, because Eric Clapton's definitely their heir as well.
So, yeah. So, and he was in New York City on June 15th, but yeah, he was not in the United States at the time potentially of this concert.
Wow.
So, but it doesn't really surprise me that, his parents who are into music are aware of what these musicians are doing because they probably are reading magazines or, things in newspapers and whatnot because they used to cover those things. So
exactly, yeah. Yep.
I mean, now they cover, how people feel about stuff rather than actually, what they're doing musically.
Yeah.
Although I gotta say, one of my beef with music nowadays is like, oh my gosh, they dropped an album, and it's like, isn't that what they're supposed to do? Like, why is this news? Like, how is this a big
That's what musicians do.
Right? Like every year and a half, 2 years, whatever. Like they drop albums. Like it's like, oh my gosh, Beyonce has a new album coming out Tuesday. And it's like, why wouldn't she?
That's her job as a musician. Make music and share it.
Yes. So yes, Eric's quite disappointed that his parents have much better tickets than he is, and he decides to storm out. And I think this is probably one of the first times where Eric and the parents are really having a kind of disagreement, and Eric his life is getting interrupted by his parents.
Yeah, I think so. We're starting to see a little bit of teenage defiance from Eric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's also he's kind of losing his cool a little bit. Mm-hmm. He's not the cool older brother who's always calm and collected. He's frazzled and unhappy.
Exactly.
Okay. So, we get back into the classroom where Minky is officially putting in his resignation for the geography tournament.
Yes, he does.
Mr. Feeny is very disappointed.
It's a sad day for Mr. Minkus, or for Mr. Feeny.
Very sad. Yes, he wants to be a regular guy. Carpe diem.
And Mr. Feeny has some wise words for him.
Mr. Minkus, I have always thought of you as exceptional.
Yep. I mean, I don't doubt that he doesn't believe that, but you gotta imagine that he's still trying to fight him to, not fight him, but he's trying to convince him, you gotta do the tournament. You know you want to.
Yeah, I mean, and from Minkus' standpoint, I don't doubt for a second that this 6th grade boy who's been picked on for probably his entire school career just wants to blend in. You know, he wants to be like Cory was a couple of, just one episode back, where Cory shares that he just wants to blend in and not stick out. Mm-hmm. And Minkus just wants to fit in and blend in. Meanwhile, Mr. Feeny he's got this reputation to uphold where, you know, he's taken the best of the best to all of these geographies. I wonder if he's ever taken a student all the way to the national level and won, or if these plaques are just from the regional. But
that's a good question.
He tries to sneak in that trick about Thrace with Minkus, and Minkus gives him his credit there. And then Cory steps up. I'm the only game in town. Then Mr. Matthews, there is no game.
I love that he's like throwing his arms out like, come on, it's me, come on.
Another
come on, Mr. Feeny.
classic image from Boy Meets World.
Yeah, I just love that so much, and he's just walking away. And then we have this very interesting scene where they walk into the hallway.
Yep, and I clipped just about all this conversation, and it really stuck out.
Come on, give me a chance.
A chance to what, Mr. Matthews? To publicly humiliate me?
Not to win for you.
You've never shown any interest in geography before this.
But I do have an interest in winning geography tournaments. I can learn anything when I'm interested in it.
Are you saying that you're willing to learn something from me?
Yeah. And if anyone can teach me, you can. Because that's the kind of teacher you are. I'm an empty vessel. How many times have I heard you say that?
I've lost count.
But I'm willing to learn from you. How many times have you heard me say that?
Well, I don't believe I've ever heard those words in that order from you. All right, Mr. Matthews, I will take you on. I shall prep you for the tournament. I know that your motives are not pure, but I hope your quest for the prize will lead you to the Temple of Knowledge.
Yeah, if it's on the way.
I am an empty vessel.
How many times have I heard you say that? Great stuff.
It's the back and forth that is just so good in this show.
It really is. You can't beat it with a stick. And the one line that might have stuck out more to me there is that Mr. Feeny, is he really that concerned about his public image when he asked Cory about a chance to what? To publicly humiliate me? Like, and he never struck me as someone, and granted, as what word do I want to use? As
vain?
No, I'm thinking from a different angle. As put together as Mr. Feeny is, and I can understand that someone who's put together to be exposed like that. I can understand that would be embarrassing, but would it really be? Is it something that he would really take that hard to have a student fail? Just something to wonder about.
Yeah. Well, I think the show does indicate that Feeny has a competitive side. And Feeny, when he loses, does not always handle that well. So I think we may just be seeing immediate signs of, he's not necessarily concerned with his student learning and being the best, but showing that he is the superior teacher to the other teachers bringing students.
Well, I think we might see more of that.
That is interesting to me.
Might see a little more of that next season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so now, well, I do like he says, we're on our way to the Temple of Knowledge. Yeah, if we
it's
get
on
there.
the way. Yeah. So
I will say real quick, you know, I know where this episode goes and everything, and I guess we'll get there when we get there, but there's a part of me that kind of wonders if Feeny is looking for Cory to step up to education. You know, and almost like he mentions the baseball prize almost as a way to see, will I catch Sean or Cory or another one of my boys who, you know, don't always have interest, and can I teach them more? Are they willing to learn more just to get a prize? Because he didn't have to make the announcement. Because I think Minkus was going to do it regardless.
Interesting thought.
So anyway, we go to the backyard where Cory is in a book. And it's very odd. It's kind of upsetting to Sean and Ellis, apparently.
Yes. Teachers are starting to notice they're saying you have potential.
Yes, and Cory is shouting out, or just kind of stating facts, and one of them throws a wad of paper at their head, and he does the same joke that Minkus had earlier, where Sean threw something at his head, and he just says, ow, and doesn't look up.
He's becoming
So I like that
Minkus.
reflective. Yes. He and Minkus are switching positions, you could say.
They are.
So, but it's also like the fact that Cory is finding what he's learning is actually interesting.
The shields are down, and he's actually allowing himself to engage.
Yes. Now, this leads me down to a part that I'm not going to enjoy very much. Cory is wrong, or his textbook is wrong. I'm not sure how they were measuring the distance between Mount Whitney and Death Valley, but from all of the estimates I could find online, he's nowhere close to 50 miles away. Unless they are measuring like from the point at which the mountain ends and the point where the valley begins. If somehow magically that is 50 miles away from each other, maybe I could see that. But from using maps and also just doing a general Google search, here are the different answers I got. 80, 85, 88, 90, 100, 100, 6.5. And if you're driving from immediately in the actual valley of Death Valley up over towards the mountain, about 136 miles, about 3-hour drive. But roughly, you know, it could be about a 2-hour car ride still, you know, to get from one point to the other. So, which isn't horrible. It's still close, but it's not 50. So I'm not sure how they measured that. I couldn't find that because nowhere in my search of trying to specifically use the number 50 was I able to find it. So if there's someone that understands geography better than me, please reach out and tell us, because I would love to learn. I am an empty vessel.
Teach him. And if you happen to see the cover of the book that Cory might have been looking, the atlas that he was using, you know, hit us up. Because I didn't see it.
Yes, no.
And remember, geography always changes, so.
That's very, very true.
Yes. So Minkus shows up, and Cory can't use his brain because it's no longer in service. And his fashion sense has seemed to have gotten even worse.
Every time I think I'm out, they try to suck me back in.
I like the little back and forth that Minkus and Mr. Feeny have over the fence.
Last night I watched House of Style on MTV. What do you think?
I think Western civilization is in its decline.
I completely agree. I'm gonna watch Beavis and Butthead now.
All right. Here it is. I present to you the Beavis and Butthead deep dive.
Oh, we get
this
a
will
Beavis
hopefully
and Butthead deep dive.
This will hopefully save anyone that was too young when this came out to get into it. Because, dear Lord, I feel like we should just move on from this as a society. For the record, when this show first came out, I was too young to watch it. And if it came on, I was yelled at immediately, turn that off. My parents were way too much aware, and they didn't want me watching it. Which is fine. So... Beavis and Butthead originally was a part of a short film called Frog Baseball, which was produced by MTV. And then they started airing an actual show called Beavis and Butthead in March 8th, 1993. So I think the giant reaction is literally just coming from the fact that this is a new show. It's big with teenagers and kids and, inappropriate adults and, people just, it was really part of the zeitgeist at the time. So I think they were just trying to hit the nail on the head of, what young people were into. And unfortunately, people were into Beavis and Butthead. Now, the original airing of this show went from, as I said, March 8th, 1993 to November 28th, 1997. They then had another season that aired in October 27th, 2011. And again, for whatever reason, they're airing a new season in August. We are recording in July, so maybe, just maybe, the new season of Beavis and Butthead you've already started watching, and I am sorry.
They're airing because it's successful.
Yes. There's officially 8 seasons and 225 episodes.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So, the reason that I am annoyed with this whole Beavis and Butthead thing is just merely because this is the prelude to things like South Park and Family Guy and all these other inappropriate cartoons, which, I will say, I've watched some of them. Not all of them have I really engaged with a lot of, but, some of them are funny. But, for me, I just like to forget about Beavis and Butthead, because what did they actually do?
Well, they did America.
Yes, I do know that.
And they have...
Would you like to add anything as someone who lived in this time as a young person with the Beavis and Butthead?
Well, Beavis and Butthead taught us that we need teepee for our bungholes.
Very nice.
And they entered terms like fart knocker into the lexicon.
Yes. So we continue with Cory kind of just spitting out factoids, especially towards Mr. Feeny. And it's the first time that we get a glimpse of Feeny being happy that Cory is trying.
Yeah, that smile is genuine pride. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. And he does bring up Hawaii used to being called the Island of Sandwiches. Mm-hmm. And to finish up my deep dive, hopefully the last time I research about sandwiches and the Earl of Sandwich. It was the Island of Sandwiches was named after the Earl of Sandwiches, which is Hawaii's original name. The Earl of Sandwich at that time was John Montague IV. He is the fourth. The third was actually his grandfather, and he took over the position of Earl of Sandwich at the age of 10, which was a noble British title at the time. The reason he is the inventor of the sandwich is because he would be gambling with his buddies. And quite often during his gambling, he would say to one of his servants, "Hey, bring me 2 meats and bread." And eventually his buddies would go, "Hey, bring me the same as sandwich." And thus, that's how we get the name.
Sandwich. Make me a sandwich.
Exactly. And that, dear friends, is the last deep dive I have for this episode. Thank goodness. But we get to the dinner table where Cory is, his family are helping him study, and they're going through different states and different topics. And Eric, of course, is trying to bring up other bands to potentially get his parents to either have interest in or to claim as his own.
Elton John, Led Zeppelin, Tina Turner, my grandmother's. Or wait, no, was that her mother's or her grandmother's? Either way. Oh, yeah.
Yes. But either way, Eric is still continuing his frustrations and annoyance and anger.
I will say this of Eric. I will give Eric this compliment in the midst of his angsty teenage fit. He's got some good taste in music.
Yeah. Very much so. Alrighty. We move into, officially, the competition.
And I will ask, was anyone else a little weirded out by all those teachers rubbing their sixth graders' shoulders before the competition?
That was the topic that I wanted to discuss with you. So a little background on you and I we can share with the audience. You met me when I was a teenager, and you were responsible somewhat whenever I was around to make sure I was safe and
somewhat
protected and all that jazz. But at no point would I have ever felt comfortable with you as an adult of authority rubbing my shoulders in any way, shape, or form. So, What's the deal, 90s?
Well, the 90s were a little less concerned with that. They weren't as concerned with asking those types of questions. And I don't think that in writing the episode and directing the episode that Susan and David really thought through the implications of what that could look like or what it could lead to or what the questions could be. Because, here we are 20 years later and, 30 years later, and just the amount of news stories that come out about inappropriate relationships between teachers and students and
or coaches and players.
And coaches and players. And not that there was any subtext at all in this scene, but unfortunately, as someone who has been someone who's worked with teenagers, someone who has spent a lot of time just immersed in news and who I work in communications these days, I have seen and read far too much about those types of relationships that have just gone way too far, and it's impossible for me to see that type of an innocent interaction without that type of thing in the back of my head, just because it's I am concerned for the safety of a student. And yes, and like I said, I do not believe for a moment that there was any subtext meant, that there was anything intended with this scene. It was just simply for the setup for the joke that Mr. Feeny was telling Cory to roll his own shoulders.
Right. But again, though, we see Mr. Feeny having, for lack of better wording, a little more class and, respecting the boundaries of his student.
Well, I go like this.
Yes. I mean, clearly, it's all about the joke. This show is all about the joke, but if we're looking at it through the eyes of a 2022 dads, Mr. Feeny is the type of teacher you're going to trust.
Yes. He is.
And Mr. Feeny has a higher standard. Even if other teachers are doing things that are questionable, Mr. Feeny is the one that won't be doing that.
Yes, he is a teacher that maintains an appropriate distance from his students. He engages them at a personal relational level, but he maintains an appropriate distance where he is able to maintain a narrative of authority that will not either prevent him from serving as an authority figure, nor will it undermine other authority figures such as parents or other teachers.
Yep. And of course, we'll see this more as we progress, especially into season 6 for whatever reason.
Indeed, yes. No hidden stuff there. And we find out the stage is full of minkuses.
Yes. Full-blown minkuses, boys and girl minkuses all over the place.
I have in my notes all caps. It's a stage full of minkuses.
Well, I just love how confident Cory is. He's like, I got this. And then the moment the competition starts, you can see his eyes just darting all around like, what is happening? What's going on? I'm so lost. What's happening? Wait,
yes.
Did you know that Hawaii used to be called Sandwich Islands?
And I find it funny and somewhat sad that despite all that time he put into learning, he apparently crashed and burned on his very first question.
Yeah. But it does get back to that point of, did Mr. Feeny care more about him actually learning the things that he was supposed to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
but I do love that as he's lost, and clearly the joke is, no matter how hard he tried, he was slacking out before. He wasn't ready for this.
Yes, you can cram, but did you truly prepare? And that's not something that's stated, but it's definitely one of those lessons that's caught, not taught. And the B winner and supposed runner-up, I want to give a little bit of credit to these two actresses. In IMDb, in their credited roles, there's a little bit of confusion there. Contestant number 5 is actually contestant number 3 when spoken on screen, is Brunel Dahl, only credited acting role. And contestant number 6 is actually contestant number 4, is Laurel Diskin. This is her last of 3 credited appearances. She doesn't appear to have acted again after this. So apparently she got this and said, oh, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering 2 things about all this. One, did Mr. Feeny desert Cory after the B? After he lost? Because Cory's on stage all by himself, hitting his head, hitting the northernmost part of his head. And 2, were his parents there?
That's a great question. Well, was this taking place during school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember hearing a time given, so I don't know.
Right. Yeah. There's a bunch of giant questions that come into play, and logistically, I don't think we can get to it.
I don't think we can.
Yes, I do love that the girls, they're walking out with a giant trophy going, what is a bad boy anyway?
Yes, further driving home, it should have been the wall map.
Yeah, it probably should have, but it wasn't. But we go to the next scene, which is, again, a very fuming, very angry Eric Matthews.
Mm-hmm. Oh, his embarrassment at Alan and Amy, just his inability to enjoy himself because he's so focused on his parents enjoying themselves. I've actually seen this a lot of times. I've probably been guilty of this in some way, not necessarily with my parents, but I'm sure I've been guilty of this with other people where I've seen them enjoying themselves, and that has caused me to not be able to enjoy myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we get to finally see Heather Ralston.
We finally get to see and meet Heather, and she's a cutie.
Her, yes.
That's for sure.
And she's played by Nikki Cox. She has 47 acting credits. We haven't seen her acting since 2011. So she's been on the spotlight for over a decade. She's appeared in such shows as Star Trek The Next Generation, under heavy prosthetic work, Night Court, Baywatch, Las Vegas, Unhappily Ever After, and Terminator 2.
Interesting.
Yes.
I wonder if she was the girlfriend in Terminator 2.
She was still pretty young when Terminator 2 came out.
She was the lead actor.
It wasn't a large role.
Okay. I just know he had a little girl that he was flirting with, and I can't remember. So it's been a while since I've watched T2.
Might have been. I don't remember the character name, but I know it wasn't a large role.
Well, I do love these. Eric is just ranting, and clearly it's just to his siblings because, sometimes as a sibling, the only people that will understand your frustration are your siblings.
Of course.
I've been there many a times. It's always fun when you could just go, your mom or your dad or your parents, and they just go, yeah, I know.
And I find it funny that he sits on the loser's couch because Cory lost his geography B thing, and he's the loser with the weird parents and
the cool parents.
Yeah, the cool parents.
I just love that Heather's like, your parents are so adorable. Like your mom was on your dad's shoulders. Like that's so great.
I like how Alan kind of sums it all up for him at the end there. And I got a clip of his closing conversation with Eric there.
Eric, I'm sorry, and I know it's tough to hear this, but your mother and I are at an awkward age. We're parents, but we're not dead yet.
Fine. Glad somebody had a good time. Come on, Heather, I'm taking you home.
Eric, stop right there. Sit back on that couch. Both of you.
Join me on the couch, Heather?
Cory, upstairs.
Why? I'm not remotely tired.
Cory.
But suddenly I'm overcome with fatigue.
Come on, sweetie.
But I want to watch Eric get yelled at.
There are lots of opportunities for that.
No, Dad, it really wouldn't be too cool to start yelling at me in front of my girlfriend.
When I was your age, I had a father like the one you want. But what I wanted was a father like the one you got. Live with it.
Did my parents just leave us alone together?
Yeah, I think they just did.
I'm the lucky boy with the cool parents.
Not that cool.
And it's such a simple and it's just such a simple way to handle that situation.
Yeah.
When I was your age, I had a dad like you want. And I hated it. Live with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a behavioral issue that needs taken care of. It's not. It's just an attitude adjustment that needs to take place. And Eric just needs to learn that as he gets older, he's got to learn that his parents have their own lives too, and they're occasionally going to cross. And so he just needs to learn to live with it, or he's just not going to be able to enjoy himself. And I love how simple it is. It's just deal with it. And he walks away.
Right. Well, I think what I appreciate about that, though, is he's not yelling at him, although he uses his firm dad voice.
Yep.
When he talks to him, it is kind of that, hey, this is what I wanted. I am trying to be the dad that I wanted for you. So deal with the fact that that's who I am.
I'm trying to give you the dad that I really wanted, the dad that would be the best dad. Deal with it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing I love about this show is it doesn't steer away from the fact that Alan and Amy are real people that have desires, that want to do stuff, that it's not just wrapped around their kids. And so, they're going to go to a concert of a band they like. Why? Because they A, have the money to do it, and B, they want to.
That's right.
So why not? Initially they said, hey, Eric, why don't you babysit your siblings? And that's when he couldn't.
Yep.
But it truly is that, hey, buddy, you need to understand this from someone else's perspective. Just because you're angry that we had a better time, that's not our fault.
Yep.
You have to live with it. Love that. But then, of course, we go back to the classroom. Because every good episode that starts in the classroom must end in the classroom.
That's right.
Minkus has returned back to being his good old nerdy self in all his glory.
Sometimes a man doesn't know himself until he's walked a mile in another man's humongous pants.
The 90s and their humongous pants.
Oh, yes. It was fun. Mm-hmm. I had some.
Yep. So Cory also realizes that if Minkus had the same question as him, Minkus would have gotten it immediately without even thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But Cory and Feeny are talking about, hey, Cory is sad that he didn't win and he really wish he could have because he tried. And Mr. Feeny reveals something that I don't think Cory was expecting.
Mm-hmm. And
he reveals his grade. Oh.
I did clip this conversation to close it all out.
Oh, good. Please continue.
I want you to know that I tried my hardest.
Did you? Do you really feel you gave it your best? That you studied as hard as you possibly could?
Yeah, I do.
You know, Mr. Matthews, many 15th century explorers believed that geography meant taking their little boat as far as it could go before it fell off the earth. You have pushed yourself to your farthest latitudes. And not only did you not topple over the edge, but I believe together we have charted new territory.
What's this?
That is this week's geography exam.
I got an A?
Yes, it's an A. Congratulations, Mr. Matthews. We won.
Right.
I love that so much. Because in the end, it's probably even more valuable to Mr. Feeny that Cory actually gave his best effort.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, and I think it also it puts into perspective that when Cory tries, he can do well.
Mm-hmm.
And probably when he was looking at the book studying in the beginning, he probably glanced at it a couple of times, like briefly right before the test, and then that's all he did.
Yeah, he's learned better study habits. He's learned what studying is, and this can go far for him in his educational career. Well,
we end the episode by Cory and Alan watching the World Series, and Barry Bonds is about to go up to bat when, oh my goodness, the bat boy, or bat girl in this instinct, has a banner, and it says, "Get France out of the Tuamotus," which was the question that Cory failed on. To whom do they belong to? To whom does who belong to?
Oh, these announcers have got to be... These are the most ridiculously knowledgeable baseball announcers.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who the Tuamotus are, except for Cory.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
And I was going to say, and unfortunately, a lot of the bat people, bat boys, or just ball chasers, a lot of times they're actual athletes that, get handpicked to do those things.
Yeah, we don't see, kids actually being bat boys anymore other than the ceremonial bat boy.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch The Longest Summer, or whatever that documentary is called, about the chase for the home run record, you see Mark McGwire's son is with him wearing a jersey and whatnot, maybe in the dugout a little bit, but he's not the official bat boy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's just there because his dad is, at a high stratosphere of
Of course.
About to complete something.
Yeah, I was just at a Guardians game a couple weeks ago, and, everyone's, the guys out there chasing balls and that go foul, and the ones that are out there grabbing the bats, they're not. They're out there. That's their job. They're not people that are out there because they won a contest.
No. But again, you could be a ceremonial bat boy. That's very much different. That's like being a ceremonial team captain for the Super Bowl. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
There were like 4 ceremonial first pitches.
Yeah, that is true. Well, that was the killing bee.
The killing bee?
Killing bee? No, killer bee.
Killer bees.
That was a killer bee. Hey, we did have those killer bees at one point during the pandemic. I'm not going crazy.
Hornets, yeah. Whatever happened to them?
I don't know.
I missed that part of the pandemic.
Apparently they went away.
Yeah.
So, what type of a grade do you think you would give this episode, Brett?
Miss Owens, excellent. Mr. Baker, very nice. Mr. Matthews, well, there it is.
I would give this episode a solid B. A lot of good lessons all around, a lot of things for all of the characters, all the main characters to do. And I felt like there were some solid arcs for each of them from beginning to end. A lot of really good interactions. What about you?
I think I'm landing on a B- right now. This truly was a solid episode. I think they're finally developing what we'll get to know as the Cory storyline and the Eric storyline. There was something going on with Eric, but it was always, off screen. Like, we were never watching Eric go on the date or anything like that. But in the future, if he's going to have a date, they're going to show part of it. So I like that we're seeing where things are going to be going with the Cory and Eric storylines. But also, as much as I enjoyed every little bit of this episode and found a lot of stuff funny, probably a lot of the real world aspects kind of pulled me out of it. And also the whole shoulder rub thing definitely bothered me. But still, good episode. Still enjoyed it. I don't know if we'll ever truly give a bad grade to any episode. Like, the lowest we've gone so far is a C, which is still, a passing grade. It can be a good grade.
Still treading water.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this might be the first one you've given a lower grade than me, though.
No, I think I'd give the last one a lower grade.
Well,
maybe. I can't remember. Either way,
I'd have to go back and check the tape.
Yeah, I know we both gave a lower grade to the 4th episode, which I know is heresy and all, but I know. But either way.
What's your Feeny's life lesson?
I think really when it comes down to it, the main story that I pulled away from this is there truly is great joy in trying to get someone to go in a way that maybe they don't want to, but in the end will be better for them. I would say that with Feeny deciding to take on Cory in the competition, I think Feeny was aware Cory's not going to win. But could Cory do good enough to know the things he needs to know for the test on Friday? Yes. And I think the fact that Feeny was willing to put his pride aside and take a loss in one battle to gain an advantage and get Cory to see what his actual potential is just huge. It's just that I think that's getting him away from just being a degenerate to actually thinking about school in a different way.
I walked away with 2 lessons. And the first is, it's okay to enjoy embarrassing your kids. And the second is one that we've actually given to our own children, all 3 of them, many, many, many times. If you gave it your best, that's what we ask. If you truly give it your best, it doesn't matter what you got, whether it's an A, a C, whatever. If you gave it your all, if you gave your best effort, that's all we ask, because even in losing, if you gave it your best, you actually won.
Yep. We had that a couple days ago for our last T-ball game. my son just couldn't get a ball because either A, it wasn't hit towards him, or when it was, another player would go and get the ball before him. And he looked back at me with giant tears in his eyes, just so upset on the last play. And I held him and I said, buddy, it's okay. You tried. That's all I ask of you. And I was like, can we just go shake the hands of the other players and put our heads up? He goes, yeah, we can. So and later on I told him, like, hey, I'm so proud of you. I'm like, you tried the best you could, and at the end of the day you shook, the other team's hands, and that's a win for Daddy.
Yep.
So
that's right. Just
trying to help these kids understand of, hey, you got the parent that I always wanted, so deal with it.
Yep.
It does help that you have a good dad like I did, so just trying to be better. It's the hard part.
Yep. So I believe you owe me a dad joke before we sign off this week.
I do owe you a dad joke. And I think it's going to be a running bit forever that I always forget that when I'm doing this, I'm supposed to give you the dad joke. I'll spend all this time doing all these research on the weirdest things and not finding a single bit he able to share. Oh, goodness. Okay. All right. I'm going to do a classic. Are you ready?
All right.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange who?
Orange, you glad I didn't say banana? Now, I will say, this was definitely a giant 90s joke. So I used this a lot as a kid. But I claim it as a dad joke because my father, to this day, uses this joke just to annoy people.
I will admit it is a dad joke. I've used it on my children, and now they, at least the youngest one, still uses it.
Well, I believe that's all we have time for today. Brett, where can we find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me trolling the interwebs on Twitter and Instagram, both at Dr. Headley Art. And I'll probably be popping in on our Facebook page at Dad's Meet World. Where can we find you, Tyler?
Well, you can always find me on Twitter at Tyler Volk. I know we're going to have a Twitter account. That's just one of those things on my list I keep forgetting to do. So eventually we will have a Twitter account. Most likely by the time this comes out, we will have a Twitter account. I promise I'm going to make it happen. But there are plenty of ways for us to get a hold of us. And you can always email us at dadsmeetworld@gmail.com. But I believe that's all we have time for today.
That's right. So, you listeners out there, we'll see you next week. And Tyler, I'll see you. Good looking.
Bye, good looking.
Find Dad's Meet World on Facebook, Twitter, and probably a few other places just by searching for Dad's Meet World. Dad's Meet World is a production of Headfirst Studios. Headfirst Studios. Tell your story.